One of the best sewing companions you can have is a wrist pin cushion. Pins are one of those sewing tools that we use religiously as sewists, and we really need that pin cushion with us all the time, beside us, literally wearing it at all times. So basically you're never tempted to do the number one bad habit. No pins in the mouth ever. We don't want to be doing that. This pin cushion uses materials from all scraps and thrifted material. It's comfy to wear, and you can make one that matches every outfit that you own. My most beloved sewing tool is this one that I made a very long time ago, that I have literally pinned to death. So I need a new one, obviously. And if you don't have one of these already, you're going to want one. I should say you're going to need one. And if you already have one, you are absolutely going to need one in every color to match every outfit that you own, obviously. For those of you following along here with me, you'll know that it has been about 18 months since I have made any new YouTube videos because I have spent 18 months battling cancer. But the good news is I won. And now we are getting on with life again. And it's like a new era and a fresh new start. And I'm excited for the fresh new start. And this is not exciting, fresh or new. And I need great sewing tools to get started with. I first made my own little pin cushion years and years ago because I just really didn't like any of the store-bought ones. They were, well, they didn't look any pretty, but they weren't really big enough and they didn't seem to fit my wrist very well. And I just didn't like them. So I set about making my own. And I wanted to use just all scrap fabric. I wanted it to get easy on and off, nice and large so I can fit all of my pins, which I'll explain later, and just obviously pretty as well. So this is made out of all thrifted secondhand materials, something you've got around home, because I know you need to make one of these too. So grab your equipment and let's go. Let's talk fabric, because you can choose anything you like, but really this is a great scrap buster project because you don't need a lot of fabric, you know, about that big. More on that later. But you don't need much. Here are the requirements. It needs to be pinnable. So by that, I mean it needs to easily be able to put pins through it, and it should easily put pins. This one's a little bit harder, and poke through. If it's too thick, you'll find the pins won't go through because you want to have it easily go through your fabric, right? So make sure it's a nice pinnable, pretty fabric that you like. That's pretty much the only requirement. Knit fabrics probably won't work so well because they're not really pinnable as much. So just think you can practice and just get it and just see how well it pins in. It should be nice and smooth. The other thing is you want it to still look good after it's been pinned a million bazillion times. So things like velvet is actually really quite good. Anything textured and, you know, printed will be fantastic choices because imagine satin, like a beautiful silk satin or something. This is not satin, but after you stabbed holes in it, you know, 45,000 million times, think how many little holes you'll get, how many pulls in the fabric, and you just don't want it to look really ratty and ugly and sort of gross looking. So I would avoid satins, anything shiny and smooth surfaces like that, just so that it looks good for years to come. And if you want to be a little bit extra, like yours truly here, well, you could go ahead and embroider your name onto the fabric also. Because, I mean, when you've got a new Fandangle embroidery machine, you've got to use it, and monogram logo on everything, right? This is the first thing that I've embroidered my name on, and I am so excited. Okay, let's talk about the band. So I really like the metal cuff for this. So from thrift store you can find them, although they are getting hard to find, maybe because everyone's making wrist pin cushions out of them. But I like it so it just slides on, and then I can actually squeeze it so then it stays in the right place. So that's something I really look for, is to go on and off nice and easy. You want it wide enough because that is the width of our actual pin cushion here is that we're looking at. So some examples of ones I've found that could be used. This one here, it doesn't matter if it's got holes in it, anything, we can fix that up. I'll talk you through that later. So this one doesn't open up quite like the other one, but it does close and it sits nice and firm up here. We don't want it rattling around, so that's good. This one here, I could push it up and it would stay. That's going to be fine. This one would still work. It would grab on, close it. A little bit thinner, of course, so you'd only get a smaller band. Maybe that's what you like. Even this one here on these beads, this would work fine because our pillow we're going to put over the top here and it would still sit on your arm. As you can put it up high and it will sit there really nice without like moving around anywhere. So there's a number of options. So just a little cuff that just makes it easy. Doesn't matter if it's holes, solid, anything, doesn't matter. What about the stuffing? Well, this is pretty simple. You could use, and I know a lot of you have in the past, use little scraps of fabric, like all cut up, and like use your scraps and make a little like pillow out of scraps. You can totally do that. I don't personally like to do it because the fabric's a bit lumpy and bumpy and it's a bit harder to sort of poke through. It gets quite solid mass rather than lighter. It's not my personal choice, but you absolutely can. You can use just pillow stuffing or wadding or batting, cotton quilting type bats would be fine. What I really recommend is just going out to the couch or even somebody else's couch and opening up the pillow and stealing a bit of stuffing from inside the pillow. Honestly, no one will even know that you've taken it. Hence why I said somebody else's pillow. And a handful will be adequate. Other than that, all of you need is just regular sewing equipment, some thread, hand needle and scissors. We're not even going to use the sewing machine. We're all going to sew it by hand. To make this, I have a few options to get you started with, but I'm starting with my fabric here is approximately 32 centimeters by 27 centimeters. That is absolutely no exact measurements. It'll depend on the thickness of your band, how fluffy you want it, and all the things, but that is just a good starting point. Okay, so 2 extras. One is that you can make a little pillow to kind of put it on with the stuffing first. If like turn this into this and then put this onto your cushion. You'll see as we go through the tutorial, but that is an option. Use just a really light weave, delicate fabric. It just helps kind of combine that down if you're finding it too hard. So just literally wrap all of this into some light fabric and just hand sew a little pillow. It can be real rough. It'll be all underneath. You won't see it, so don't worry about how pretty it is, but that can help if you find this a bit too much. The other is if you are a porcupine pinner. And what is a porcupine pinner? That is when you have your wrist pin cushion on and you put them all out like this and they end up all being like a little porcupine where they're all stabbed on top, and that's what I call the porcupine pinner. I don't pin like this because they all get stuck on everything. As you're moving around and you do things, it hits things and they fall off, they get stuck, they get caught. I hate it. I don't like it at all. I don't pin like this, but a lot of people do. It means that, it can go down and go through the pin basically as you're wearing this, and it means that you don't want a pin to go through into your arm as you're wearing it if you're doing the porcupine method. So the optional extra here is to use a little covering. Some people, I know this was added to my original tutorial, added a thin piece of plastic, like the placemat type thing or something like that, cover for a book cover, even just thick cardboard, something that you can bend and put here as a covering, just so that as you pin, and if you pin through as a porcupine, it gets stuck on the metal and it won't go then all of the way through and actually pin your arm. Alternative is, of course, to have a full solid metal band that no matter how much you pin through, it won't pin through it at all. As I said, I pin using a flat method. I don't use porcupines. I use a flat method that go in the side, and that is they all slot in either side and all of the pin is exposed in. So I can wear this around, I can move around my studio, I do things, it doesn't get caught on anything because all the pins are nice and secure inside. And the pins actually end up going sideways through this. They don't come out the other end, but they go sideways and there's no risk of it actually pinning me. So that's the optional extra for you porcupine pinners. Okay, first up, we are going to insert our stuffing into the fabric and make a little sausage-like number. So I've got my name here and I need to figure out which way I want that to go. I think in the middle. All right, so I want this like this. So these will be in here and then these sides get wrapped around. Very important. Okay, so first of all, we're going to work on this one and making it a little sausage this way so we can wrap it into the band. So I'm putting my stuffing here like this, want it nice and fat. And so take one side and fold it over and then take the other side. But what we want to do is fold it over and just finger press a nice crisp edge. And you can obviously do this at the iron, probably even easier. but get a nice crisp edge to start with. And it will help fold it down. And so this is maybe going to go around here. And so just to see how this is going to work, you can see my stuffing goes on either side. We're going to fix that. But essentially what we're going to do is pull this in here and then pull this way. And you can start to see the pin cushion come to life already, right? Right, now get the idea of how it's going to work. Basically, we just need to fiddle around with this until we get it right. So I quite like the width here. This is what we're working on first. So I'm just going to put a couple of pins in there to kind of just hold it in place. Where's my wrist pin cushion when I need it? All right, because we need the stuffing here to fit the width of the waistband. So I'm going to just really stuff this in either side. So pop it down, place each end down one little bit, fold it in. And we want this nice and tight, and then we want to fold this inside here. So we've got a few layers of fabric and even over the other end there. So now it really grabs and it stays there without just like one-handed, right? This is what we're after. And now we can see how big the stuffing is that we need to keep going. So I'm going to take that pin out because it's holding its shape now. And just keep pushing that down until it's got there. Now, let's just test and see where we're at. So fold this over, just roughly, and we can start to see how this is coming along. This is much, much harder trying to center your name on here, so I wouldn't recommend that for beginners. But there we go. So as I put this on, that is starting to look pretty good. So give it a test and some pins. Yep, that's pretty good. I actually think that I could have more stuffing in here. Now you want it to be quite full because it's going to get more compressed as time goes on, it gets squashed down. So I'm going to really stuff that even a little bit more. So fold it out, put a bit more stuffing in, and see how we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just continue to play with this, and by play I mean pin, poke, prod, fold, etc. It's really important to get that tension on this side so you can fold it over nice and tight and really get that stuffing in really well. And so when you fold it over, it's sitting exactly like you like it in the shape and the size that you want when you fold it over. And then we can actually start pinning the raw edges under because that is all what we need to sew to make it into place. But this is going to take a while. I should have mentioned at the start, if you don't like fiddly things, this tutorial is probably not for you. Just do whatever you can to sort of make it hold its shape and stay in place. Don't pin yourself though. Okay, so here's the basis of my pin cushion. I've got it going. I've got my lovely Evelyn wood in the center, and it's looking pretty good. It's sort of staying shape about how I want it to sit. All we really need to do now is to deal with this end so that we can hand stitch it up. So mine's sitting along this edge and I want to fold this under and hand stitch it. So I've got a little bit of excess, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this off so it's a bit more manageable and that I can tuck it under. And you kind of want it to fold just inside underneath. So definitely on the band, like on the flat part underneath. You don't want it coming out because you'll see it and you want to give it a chance to pull a bit tighter. So you want a bit of extra room, but pop it down. And then just start pinning this in place with some more pins. Definitely go ahead and like tuck down any like bits that you don't want to see, any raw edges, and just really kind of neaten it up as you go along. Little scissors helpful for this. Did I mention that this can take a while? True test, my giant pins, it's pretty good. Okay, I think we're onto a winner here. So all we need to do from here is hand stitch all this together. You don't need anything fancy. It does not need to look pretty, so don't worry about it. Just think strong. So use knot up and use a double thread. So 2 strands of thread at the same time you're sewing. And just first of all, sew closed this seam. And so really think about pulling it tight as you do and close that seam up tight. Then come along and actually stitch down a little bit better the edges of the pillow so you can hide any raw edges and make sure it sits down nicely as you go. When you get to these little corners, I actually quite like to sort of pull in and hide a little bit of excess fabric so that it sort of folds down a little bit further and really sew it in tight just to keep the shape nice, fold any curves in and just make it look prettier, as you can just manipulate it with your hands as you go. And this is why hand sewing can be a lot easier, because it's easier to manipulate as you go, and just make it a really nice even little cushion as you're hand sewing. You can really start to see what a difference sewing around the sides and really making it tight and even as you sew makes such a difference. This side compared to this one that's still yet to be sewn makes it just look so much better. So keep going. I said it would take a while and a lot of fiddling. I realize I have put little like edges on either side except this one. So I'm just going to fix that one up. Okay, for the finale, the true test. Let's see, I think she's a little bit fat on this one side here, but it will work in time. Wow. So let's see, as I was talking about not porcupine pinning, let's pin the right way. I pin all of mine in sideways so that they're all in nice and neat. Let's see how it works. Yeah, this is going really good. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Even my big monster fitting pins, all the way. This is wonderful. None are poking out. This is just, this makes me very, very happy. And of course, you know, if you do the porcupine thing, you can just, you know, you can do that, but like, let's not. Let's put it sideways. There we go. Ah, wonderful. And needless to say, I am absolutely thrilled with my new pin cushion. And even more so, it has my name on it. Personalized, customized, all out of scrap fabric. This makes me so happy, makes me so inspired to sit here and, you know, every time I look at it, it's nice and neat and new, and it looks like I should start new exciting things, which, oh, I'm so excited too. I know you're all here for it as well. If you're going to make one of these, leave a comment, tell me down below, because I'd love to see also your tips and tricks when you make it yourself. Make sure you leave those comments down below for all of our other sewists in the community to learn from your making of this wonderful wrist fashion pin cushion also. I'd love to hear them down below. All right, until next time, my sewing friends, happy sewing. Bye.